Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Rivero. Thank you for joining us. In what appears to be a bump on the road to pandemic recovery, the United States gained far fewer jobs than expected last month, grounding hopes of a speedy economic recovery even as more of the country gets vaccinated. Economists predicted the country would gain around 1 million jobs in April. In reality, only 266,000 were added. Now, that is just about a third of what was gained the month before. The unemployment rate also remains virtually unchanged at just above 6%. CBS News radio correspondent Steve Dorsey has more.
The U.S. economy still has more than 8 million fewer jobs now than it did at the start of the pandemic.
We're still digging out of an economic collapse that cost us 22 million jobs.
The Labor Department reported 266,000 new jobs last month, far below the 1 million jobs that some economists expected, and the unemployment rate is still above 6%.
Today, there's more evidence that our economy is moving in the right direction, but it's clear we have a long way to go.
One of the biggest drags on economic growth right now appears to be the extended unemployment benefits passed during the pandemic, which some say is providing an incentive to workers to stay home.
Clearly, if somebody can make more money by being home and collecting unemployment and taking care of their families, that's a smart economic decision. And it may force restaurants and some of the other areas of the economy to really pick up the wages.
The White House says it doesn't see evidence that unemployment is keeping people from looking for work.
The data shows that more workers are looking for jobs, and many can't find them.
The hospitality industry showed the biggest gains in the April report, but demand for employees still outpaces supply.
We can't open 5 days yet.
Chef and owner Amy Murray says she needs workers right now.
It's unbelievable how many people are coming out for Mother's Day. It's almost like the debutante ball of the season.
Mother's Day is one of the busiest days of the year for restaurants. Steve Dorsey, CBS News, the White House.
Sean Sullivan and Terry Haines join me now. Sean is a CBS News political contributor and White House reporter for The Washington Post. Terry is the founder of Pangaea Policy, an independent consultancy based in D.C. Welcome to both of you. Terry, let me start with you. On top of these lower than expected job gains in April, the Labor Department also cut March's job numbers from 916,000 down to just 770,000 jobs. Now, that earlier report had spurred a lot of this hope for the quick recovery that we're now seeing dashed once again. How did the prediction and the reality end up so far apart for both March and April?
Well, Tanya, good afternoon. And that's a really fair question. Economists have a lot of explaining to do, but I think fundamentally they're not looking closely enough and taking into account a lot of the transitional issues that your reporting just a minute ago identified. There's a huge number of transitional issues here that have to do with a lot of different things. Everything from childcare, the pace of the rollout of the vaccines, how much unemployment is being offered. I think the fact that basics like the school year are out. So the simple fact that the biggest gains and the biggest losses are shown in things like hospitality being a huge gain, but that temporary jobs, lots of other things that were big in 2020 are starting to fall off. You take that all plus exogenous shocks like supply chain difficulties that are impacting the automobile sector and others. You've got a very mixed picture, and the trend is undoubtedly in the medium to long term much up, but you're going to see a lot of bumps in the road here over the next few months as things start to get back to normal.
You make a really good point about the child care and the fact that we're transitioning into summer. You know, a lot of women who had to pull out because of child care issues during due to school being online are certainly not going to be freed up to work now that the summer is beginning. So that's a very good point. Sean, I want to turn to you and talk about the way President Biden addressed the news today, because, unlike his predecessor, we don't hear him spending a lot of time praising the state of the economy. Here's more of how he framed the news this afternoon. Let's listen.
We knew this wouldn't be a sprint, it'd be a marathon. Quite frankly, we're moving more rapidly than I thought we would. We never thought that after the first 50 or 60 days, everything would be fine. Today, there's more evidence that our economy is moving in the right direction. But it's clear we have a long way to go.
So, Sean, what do you make of the president's sort of more sober tone when it comes to the economy? What do you make of that delivery?
Well, I think it's clear that the president is trying to reassure the country, is trying to send a message today of hold on, don't panic. This is one snapshot. We've talked about the recovery as a broad thing. But the reality is anytime you have a jobs report like this that underperforms expectations, it's never a good thing for the party in power. And the party in power in this case is the Democrats. It's President Biden. It's Democrats in Congress. And it could become especially concerning for this administration, politically speaking, because they have really centered their agenda in restoring the country to a stronger economy, restoring the country to a more normal state, coming out of the pandemic, getting more people vaccinated. And so when you have a report like this, it does raise new questions about a number of things. Now we're seeing analysts question why this is happening. I think we're going to see a renewed debate now about whether there is a labor shortage in the country that is driving this, and what, if anything, unemployment benefits that have been extended by the Biden administration in their legislation, their signature legislation, has to do with that. So what we hear today from the president, from his top advisors, is a note to try to reassure the country. And the question is how the country is going to react to this news. What we'll see in subsequent job reports, I think, will tell us more about that in the months ahead.
So, Terry, let's dive into some of these numbers, and because things don't necessarily totally add up to me. And obviously, I'm not an economist, but we've got millions of people still looking for work, and then we've got these reports of a labor shortage. So I'm trying to figure out, why one is not helping the other. President Biden did say he does not believe that the added unemployment benefits are impacting this particular jobs report. But we do see Montana and South Carolina are ending the extra aid for the unemployed because of this concern. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen pointed to childcare and pandemic concerns as a factor, before giving this explanation. So let's listen to what Janet Yellen had to say before you answer my question.
I don't think that the addition to unemployment compensation is really the factor that's making a difference. There's no question that we're hearing from businesses that they are having difficulty hiring workers, although over 300,000 workers, I'd point out, were added this last month in leisure and hospitality, which is the most badly affected sector.
So, Terry, which one is it, or is it all of the above?
You know what? I'll say two things. One is I think it is all the above. There's a little bit of truth in all of these things, and a number of Secretary Yellen's former colleagues at the Fed, including Governor Kashkari, have noted that there's a dynamic, he calls it, that includes many of these things, number one. Number two, I do think that the markets and the public at large tend to listen to Secretary Yellen as if she were still in the Fed. And, let's do remember that Secretary Yellen at this point is a general in the Biden Army, and the Biden Army is tasked with the priorities of the administration. She's not exactly the independent player that she was at the Federal Reserve. So I would discount a little bit of those comments accordingly.
So, Sean, where does this all leave, then, the White House's approach to the economy, with President Biden set to meet with Republican lawmakers about his jobs and family plan, this week? Is that going to take a little bit of the wind out of his sails?
Well, it could become a big topic of conversation, and this meeting is going to be one that I think a lot of people are going to take a lot of interest in. This is going to be the first time we're going to see the president sit down with the top 4 leaders on Capitol Hill, not just the Democratic leadership, but the Republican leadership too. So I think, of course, we can expect to see some discussion about this sweeping infrastructure proposal that the president has put forward. We may be able to get some clues about whether there is any potential for some sort of compromise with Republicans. But Republicans, right now don't seem all that receptive to the plans that the president has put out. The president hasn't really been that receptive to some of the alternatives that we've seen from the Republicans. So the question is, where is the middle ground? Is there a middle ground? Are they going to be able to strike some sort of compromise on the corporate tax rate? Are they going to come to some sort of compromise on the overall size of the infrastructure package? But certainly that meeting now coming against the backdrop of this latest jobs report, this disappointing jobs report for the country, that's another factor that I think people are going to be watching as we look to what is actually going to be discussed in this meeting and how both sides kind of dig in going into it.
All right, Sean Sullivan and Terry Haines, thanks to both of you. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.